are looking for in their people. These momentous changes raise substantial organizational and talent challenges at a time when the industry leaders are already wrestling with unprecedented disruption, risks, and socio-political upheaval. To shed more light on these evolving times, MBA IIT Kanpur is pleased to welcome Mr. Aditya Pal Singh, Talent Acquisition Head India Informatica, to share his views and perspective on the topic Workforce of the Future. Mr. Aditya is a talent acquisition professional with a progressive career in a multicultural and matrix environment. Mr. Aditya has proven specialist and functional skills acquired and implemented throughout 19 years of a career spanning the entire gamut of talent acquisition. With a rich blend of experience in consulting and MNC organization, he has designed and deployed talent acquisition strategy to meet talent growth needs and has also ensured its effective execution. Now, without any further ado, I would hand over the session to Mr. Aditya. Sir, the session is to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon to all of you. I'm going to share my screen. All right. So the topic workforce of the future. First question is why am I spending time with you on this, right? It's a topic which I feel is pretty relevant in the direction which we are growing, right? It's very important for you to understand which are the factors which influence the workforce of the future. And something pretty relevant to you is the kind of skills required for you in the future, for you to be employable, but also move in the right direction where you are. And these are all, what's the right word, trainable skills for you to learn. Before I, go further up, it's, as I said, this is an important topic, and why are we speaking about it? But then it's very important that we understand the history to it, right? So I'm going to maybe share a short video. It's pretty relevant to the direction which I wanted to bring about. So.
The term Fourth Industrial Revolution is coined by Professor Klaus Schwab, founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum. He claims that the Fourth Industrial Revolution will be more profound than any prior period of human history. To understand the idea of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, 4IR, or as some call it, Industry 4.0, we need to go back in history and take a look at the First Industrial Revolution, which started around 1760 in Great Britain.
The video is not on the screen. We can only see the PPT.
Oh, all right. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right.
Is coined by Professor Klaus Schwab, founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum. He claims that the Fourth Industrial Revolution will be more profound than any prior period of human history. To understand the idea of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, 4IR, or as some call it, Industry 4.0, we need to go back in history and take a look at the First Industrial Revolution, which started around 1760 in Great Britain, which was powered by the steam engine. From the late 1880s, the Second Industrial Revolution was notable for mass production, division of labor, and electricity. The Third Industrial Revolution, known as the Digital Revolution, took place in late 1960s, which in a few decades saw the invention of the computer and the internet. Industry 4.0 is a result of the fusion of technologies. The exponential growth of technological advances are merging the physical, digital, and biological worlds in ways that just decades ago was only possible in science fiction movies. Gene editing, new forms of machine intelligence, robotics, 3D printing, nanotechnology, And technologies such as blockchain and smart materials are profoundly changing the way we live, work, and relate to one another. Bernard Marr, author and speaker on business, technology, and big data, warns that the question is not if Industry 4.0 is coming, but rather how quickly it will arrive. As with big data and other business trends, he suspects that the early adopters will be rewarded for their courage jumping into this new technology, and those who avoid change risk becoming irrelevant and left behind. Connected machines and objects offer a great potential for a 4IR, and experts predict the number of connected devices that will be in use is estimated to reach 75 billion by 2025. The data obtained from these physical devices are then put through machine learning and artificial intelligence processes. As machines become more intelligent, humanity will also grow and become smarter. American author, inventor, and futurist Raymond Kurzweil says, "It's hard to think of any problem that a superintelligence could not either solve or at least help us solve. Disease, poverty, environmental destruction, unnecessary suffering of all kinds. These are things that a superintelligence equipped with advanced nanotechnology would be capable of eliminating." According to Kurzweil's law of accelerating returns, technological progress is moving ahead at an exponential rate, especially in information technologies. This means today's best tools will help us build even better tools tomorrow, fueling this acceleration. Although there are many people who are enthusiastic and want to learn more about IoT, blockchain, bioengineering, and AI, 4IR, portrayed in cinema and literature, have instilled in us a sense of dread at the thought of an AI going rogue, like in the movie Terminator.
I am a machine.
The blending of biology and engineering is another key component of 4IR that we are already witnessing. Biomedical gerontologist Aubrey de Grey says he believes that, thanks to imminent advances in technology, the first person to live up to age 1000 is likely alive today. But bioengineering brings new areas of concern and debate as well. A newly published paper has revealed that Chinese scientists have added human genes to the brains of monkeys. This did not sit well with other researchers in the field and drew heavy criticism for crossing the chimera line. Monkeys are far closer to humans on the evolutionary ladder than mice, and many feared that endowing them with human genes related to brain function could inadvertently give them a stronger sense of self-awareness. The more we anticipate and debate the most powerful technological revolution to date, the better we can guide the development toward outcomes that do more good.
Okay, so main aim, why I wanted to show the presentation, show the video was, for you to get a sense of, how the industry has moved in the last, couple of hundreds of years. It's the first one was in 1765. Steam engine coming through. I'm sure all of us remember those images. At least for you guys, you would have seen it on TV. And for steam engines, very rare now to find them. Then obviously 100 years later, you had the coming of the second revolution, which was gas and oil, chemical synthesis. 100 years later, need for energy, rise of electronics, your transistors, a lot of things came in, and you are now sitting in the 4.0 industrial revolution, which is nothing but you think everything on cloud. I think that's the direction a lot of companies are going. IoT, big data, and a lot of areas which we are. So aim for me was not to brush up your history, but for you to give some basis of how erstwhile it was slower to move pace. In the last 10-12 years, please see the amount of rate of change of technology is moving at a much faster rate. Look at the phones around you, look at the other things around you, laptops and few other things. It has evolved. I'm sure 4 years back, 3 years back, people wouldn't have even thought that you will be sitting virtual, right? Now you've been forced into doing this, but people wouldn't have even thought. So the rate of change of technology is far more higher. I think I'll speak about it in my last slide. Why is it happening? But coming back to the topic, right? As I spoke about, what are the factors which really influence your workforce of the future, right? There are multiple factors which influence, which play an important part, and this is my assumption and some of the research which I've done. This is what I call the triple W's: the workforce, workplace, and work. If you saw the video, the average age will go up, but then right now, as we speak, in a couple of years down the line, the average age for any living human being would end up at what 74 to 75 age. Okay, the kind of workforce you will see more free agent, more contingent kind of workforce which will come into play. If I'm not sure if some of you have heard the budget which is proposed, they talked about how do you cover these free agents during this period of time, right? Virtual workforce, I think so. We've been pushed into it today. I'm sure you would rather be sitting in a campus right now at not at your houses, but we've been pushed into it. But in due course of time, you would see more virtual, more remote, maybe a hybrid setup, and more a global setup, right? Um, we are already in a era of the new generation Gen Z, which is coming to workplace, and all generations come with a very different mindset, right? Expectations are very different. So imagine managing a workforce which has like 3 to 4 different kind of generations. So itself is a huge pandemic for anybody to manage, right? And work will be more about employees in due course of time than about the workplace. And the social media access will play a very important part to all the employees, but at the same time the image of the company will play a very, very important part. Example, today I'm sure when you sit for an interview, I'm sure you read about the company on Glassdoor, right? Or anything else, or you try and also see what's the social cause the organization is going to take, when we how it is impacting the world in the future. So all of these parts, I'm trying to correlate some of these things to where you are today. So all of these things will play an important part in factoring the workforce of the future. Longer career spans, I think the people will continue to work more longer. If you're not in a government service, there is no retirement, right? To people who would continue to work and perpetually work, because one, your life age has gone up. Secondly, you would want to continue because you don't have anything else to do, right? Your mind is far more nimble as we speak. And also there's a concept called perennials, right? These are people who would want to continue working. Example is BMW has one of their factories in Germany. They realized that they had an aging population issue. So what they did is they made the workplace more convenient for little more older workforce to get things done, and they saw higher production, which impacted the production. Not similar to what you would have studied in, I don't know whether you still have Orthon studies or not, but similar to that. Then there's a concept called leaning out, which basically says that in India people hover around retiring at 60. The organization will say, hey, you don't retire at 60. Maybe you work for another 4 years, but instead of giving me 8 hours, you just work for 4 hours in a day, right? So this way, I as an organization don't lose the talent. Secondly, you have something to do during the day, right? So you don't lose the talent. So these are some things which are happening from a career standpoint. Man versus machine, I think so there is enough written about it, but the difference between us and the machines is our ability to be far more creative and our ability to think. Machines are something which we input data and they will follow that, right? That's the difference between us and the machines. But lot of organizations will in due course of time be working in a hybrid model where you will be working at parallel with the machines to get work done. You should know how to get your work done, but then your roles will also evolve around you, right? There's a concept called moving to cities. I think so. There's a concept called metro towns. Sorry, satellite towns. These are big towns, which are about, if I'm not wrong, there are about 16 of them, which in houses a lot of large population like Shanghai, Mexico City, Delhi, and few other cities. What is happening is, people are moving to these cities for better education, better health, and a lot of other things. But in due course of time, this explosion from this very small set will go up to a 29 to a 30. So you can see the push on infrastructure to making sure that all of these cities are more infrastructurally ready. But what's the reverse of it is, you will see underemployment, you will see slums, you will see stress. There are a lot of other things which will have both the positive and the negative side of these cities. uh, uh, Impact on developing and developed and developing nations. I'll give you two stark examples. Uh, if you look at Japan, Japan has an issue of aging population. What does that mean? Their immigration policy should be open enough to have a lot of younger people come and work in Japan. Whereas if you look at Africa, has an issue of overemployment, but infrastructurally they are not strong to making sure that everybody gets jobs. So you have a push out factor. So you will see some countries pulling in, some countries pushing out people according to in a very different direction. Climatic change, people will take a lot of steps. Right now when you buy property, right, you will decide the locality, but then in due course of time people will look at soil erosion, look at tropical changes in climate to making sure that is this the right place for you to settle. There are a lot of other things from a climate and a lot of other things people will take into account when they want to work, right? Obviously things will become far more virtual, but these are some of the other things which will add on from a understanding and from a workforce to move into that city. So a lot of companies will look at all of that, of saying that, hey, every year we get torrential rain in this city. Does it even make sense to move talent into this place? Does it even make sense for people to move here, right? So there are a lot of things which companies will look at. I think the gig is something is coined by guitarists, people who play guitars. It was basically doing a particular gig and just getting off, right? And that's also termed that flexibility. I feel this will play an important part, and I'm sure you would have read enough about it, where people will look at flexibility of work. We'll look at when they want to do work. It will be era of some specialist, but then as I spoke about it earlier, we just need to see a concept of, okay, if X person works for my company for 3 months, and then decide not to work for next 6 months, uh, the current employer should be at least be in a position to cover the benefits, right? The insurance, few other things. Uh, Before the other one takes up, and that then the other one takes up from there. So those are some of those areas which have pushed now companies to think a little more differently when they are looking at hiring gig workers. But then this is one area you will see a lot of people getting into, right? So those were the factors which I felt influence the workforce of the future. Uh, now these are, I feel, these are key skills from an individual standpoint. And if I'm not wrong, when I just did a corporate presentation, and complex problem solving was there, and I was laughing about it. Yeah, it's the basically it's your mental elasticity to solve a never seen problem before, right? Because we are living in a world where every day there is some unique problem which is being thrown up. So what do I term them? Term them as a wicked problem, not evil, but something like a climatic change. And how do you adapt? How do you get into a situation? How do you solve it? Right? The current situation itself It's the best example of a lot of companies stepping forward and solving the issue of people working from home instead of receding back and waiting for things to get over, right? So this is an important skill as we speak. Critical thinking, I think so. It's basically logic and reasoning. To basically, it's to use solution. To look at the whole issue and then solution the problem of weighing its pros and cons. Right? It's your ability to look at things far more critically and your ability to weigh it in a very objective way than anything else. Creativity, I think so. And man versus machine, this is what I spoke about earlier also. Your ability to be far more creative, with the coming of new tech, organization will look at new ways of working, and employees need to be far more creative when they solution issues, right? See, the difference between us and a machine or a robot is, robots are all about speed, but they're not creative at all, right? Creativity is not artsy, but it's basically how do you connect data, how do you connect dots and make a solution out of it, right? So that plays an important part. People management, I think so. Reading people, seeing what motivates them, understanding people, understanding working in a hybrid model, and imagine understanding someone who's been only virtual with you. So these are parts which play a very, very important part for people as individuals. Coordinating with others is basically collaborating. Collaboration will play a very important part because it's very crucial in the future. Interacting with everybody, getting things done, understanding what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses, your ability to get work done with people with different personalities. How, you would have read something on interpersonal skills, approach, avoidance, some of those theories. It's been like 20 years for me, but that's pretty much reference to what you would have studied. EI, I think so. It's basically empathy, right? Realizing the need of people, how you manage behavior and navigate through social complexity, right? It's basically what it's self-awareness, motivation, empathy, and social skills. I think these are very important part from an emotional intelligence perspective. uh, Judgment and decision making, looking at data and doing judgment, it has to be a data driven approach, and also trying to look at the impact of current decisions in future. So you just can't take decisions to impact you immediately, but look at a long term impact of your decisions at this period of time. Uh, Service orientation, it's not only KYC, it's basically actively looking forward to understand your clients better, anticipating them, putting the spotlight on them, stepping into the mind of the customer, thinking about the values, their likes, dislikes, having a very different approach, right, is very important, right? Negotiation, negotiation is your ability to negotiate, because it's in due course of time, this will be all about, you may have to get into a situation where you need to get work done, but that person may not be reporting into you, may not be in your team. It's your ability to negotiate, influence, get work done, making sure that you achieve your objective, the other person also achieves their objective, but then be in a position to get things done will be a very important skill. Cognitive flexibility, it's your ability to do multiple things at one time. I'll give an example of gymnast. If you look at, if you visualize, any of those, gymnasts who perform any of those floor exercises, imagine the floor as self, and all those rings and those obstacles, as different ways of thinking, and how do you navigate, how do you circle through all of those issues? Uh, how are you able to resolve all of that at one shot? Is the kind of mindset people will try and look at. This is something which I had it, lately is I've been reading about it is T-shape learner, right? It's your while all of you will end up specializing in one particular area. It's very important that you understand the peripheral area. Like somebody in HR, if somebody is going to specialize in compensation and benefits, it's important that the person also understand what a learning and development person does, what a talent acquisition person does, what a performance management person does, right? So understanding your uh, parallels subjects also is very important, but you need not be an expert. So that's important from a T-shaped learner. Now look at all of these skills, and these are the skills to some extent when you sit for campaign, and I'm sure some of you are already sitting, you will get assessed in some of these skills, right? These are some of the areas where you see a lot of organizations say we are pivoting to the new. These are the skills when they try and look at people inside the organization, do they have at least some of these skills for them to be, which will help the organization grow further, right? So these are some of the skills when you get interviewed, you will get asked, your questions will revolve around this when they assess you. It's not only the theory. Nobody's going, while people will ask you what is Maslow's theory, but they will try and look at, the kind of work which you've done. How do you manage these kind of situations? Because I'm sure some of you have worked, but once you get into a different level and a management cadre, it's all about how do you solve problems, and the problems are not repetitive in nature, right? So you need to be far more creative. Um, this is my last slide, and I think so. I spoke about it at the starting. Martik's law, and maybe it's good if you can research about it. It basically talks about rate of change of technology. If you look at the yellow curve, it talks about the rate of change of technology, and the blue curve is basically the organizations. See the gap between both of them, right? There's a delta. Why is there a delta? Because our rate of change of adoption to technology is far more slower than expected. And what has happened is the technology is moving at a fast pace. Now, the best example is the current situation. If COVID hadn't happened, you would have not maybe used Zoom so much. But then what have you realized? You are also effective working from home. You also realize that you can get things done from home or virtually. So now we've been pushed into doing that. Organizations are at a slower rate as we speak of adoption of technologies. And that the other issue is also that technology is also vast and it's also super specialized. One area of technology advancement is so high as compared to another area, and a lot of times you have so many tools that they don't talk to each other, right? To anybody of you have worked, organization will have a separate LMS tool, and then they'll have Workday, then they'll have another recruiting tool, Teleo. So there is no consistency because you have too many people who are making great decisions, right? So hence the gap. I just wanted to explain my inputs towards this. So yeah, so no, I wanted to one, keep it pretty light. Sorry, from a understanding perspective, I am happy to take yeah, any questions, anything which any of you have.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for this. We'll just move on to the questions now. So first we have Vaibhav Goyal. Vaibhav, please.
Thank you, sir, for such a session. My question is, like, you talked about the work from home and about the possible hybrid model, which can be foreseen in the near future. But at the same time, it has been noticed that the employee engagement has taken a significant hit in the past few months. So how are the organizations are looking at these problems and planning to tackle these?
So your question is the employee engagement has dipped in the virtual work.
Right, correct, sir.
Is that an assumption or you read it somewhere?
I read it in the various organizations had this concern that the employee engagement is in virtual.
So okay, quite a bit of assumption. I'll tell you why. Because what organizations have landed up doing, and we've also done it, is we do a pulse survey, right, of the employees, and then we look at the barometers and see which area they are lacking in. While some of it's actually not been so much of engagement, it's more of connecting with other people, which is to some extent irrelevant to what you talked about. What organizations are trying to do is look at what is, why is it happening, right? Now when we are at home, there is no blur line, there is blur lines, for at least for anybody who's working, right, of saying that now I can schedule a call with X at 8 in the morning to 8 in the night, right? So what organizations have effectively started doing is setting up, people have started setting up times with their own supervisor of saying that I'm going to work from this time to this time. My calendar will be blocked from this time to this time because I am at home, right? So setting expectations with your supervisor, with your employers, of saying that this is where I'll be, this is my work time, this is my home time, and also then looking at other areas of engagement. Also, you need to have small things like your regular one-on-one connects, because you will not be seeing that person every day now, right? You will be seeing that person maybe only virtually. So a lot of the calls now, organizations have a video on, because at least you know whom you're speaking to at that period of time, right? So these are small things which organizations are doing. And obviously there are a lot of other engagement activities, like they have your art contest, you have Tambola online, a lot of other things I'm sure all of you have. But those are to keep to take the load off the employee. But one-on-one connects with the people of your team is very important, is what organizations are learning now in the current scheme of things, of saying that you as a supervisor, you should know what's happening with your team, because now you're not seeing them physically. So at least I'll give you my example. I have a large team, but I make sure that in a fortnight I do a one-on-one with everybody, right? For me to see, speak, and understand, because a lot of times since I didn't have any work with you today, Vaibhav, so I wouldn't have even spoken to you the whole day, right? Or maybe for next 2 days, right? So those are small things, and which organizations are doing, connecting one-on-ones, having video calls, understanding. You also have small, engagement activities which are happening. But good part, or the people are realizing they are far more productive. So the organizations, if you look at all the balance sheets lately of all the big organizations, they've actually become more productive as we speak, right? Because all your, the other conversations have gone away, right? People are only focusing on work as we speak, right? All right.
Next, we have Anubhav Singh.
Thank you for the session, sir. Sir, actually, with the technology, we have seen more people getting unemployment. So, how do you see the impact of technology on the demand of the workforce? And are we really going to see a decrease in increase in unemployment rate?
See, unemployment is a mindset. Let me tell you, if you think you are if you are unemployed and you'll keep on looking at skills and areas which you've been working, you'll always stay unemployed, right? I always feel it's if you look at industry, and we all know what are the skills which are required in the future, right? I spoke about, but then you also know from a pure technology, if to all of you have done engineering, you know that if you're on the scripting side, React and few other areas is going to grow, right? So it's very important that people understand upskill, but upskill in the direction they want to grow their careers in, right? If the issue is a lot of people wait for the organization to upskilling should be an individual prerogative, right? Henceforth, if you see a lot of organizations, what they're trying to do is, like in our organization, we are given Coursera license for free. I can do any course for free. So basically, the organization is saying that if you feel that you want to do a bite-sized learning, very small learning to understand something which will help you in a current role, go ahead and do it. Or if you want to do something else which will help you from a longevity of career standpoint, please go ahead and do it. So employment will not. I think so. You will have more people moving in a direction where they will become a little more specialist. They will be more aware. The workforce, you guys are far more smarter than the generations of mine, right? Because you have readily available information, right? It's not that. It's like Anubhav saying that you will choose your own employment, and you will choose yourself to say, I don't want to work for a period of time. Where your father would have said, not working for some time is what's wrong with him, right? Right now, you still will think that maybe for next, I'll work for 5 years, take a year off, right? So the mindset is what has changed. It's not the unemployment. The roles will keep on evolving. It's very important for you to understand what are the kind of roles you want to focus and then build your career towards that.
Next, we have Karupaya. Karupaya, can you proceed with the question? Okay, we'll just move on with Shudipto.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. I want to ask that you have mentioned that as Japan is currently having a age problem and in their workforces. And African countries are abundant with workers. So some countries will push people and some countries will take peoples. But statistically, we are seeing that Japan is the one of the lowest in the terms of taking immigration in the first world countries.
Yep.
They investing a lot on robotics and all. So
Yep.
how we are seeing
Yeah,
this?
so that's the history, right? That's what history talks about. Now they will have to move in that direction of employing more. So what I'm referring to is what's going to happen in the next couple of years down the line. While it is robotics, but not everything. I know, I'm sure you would have seen some of those robots when if you walk into a hotel, it's a mannequin with whatever, moving in that direction. They would, but then they would require a lot of people on the technology space to understand and articulate. They've always been bending towards robotics, but not everything will be robotics. They will have. That's why I said they will look at immigration very differently as we are today, right? Only issue with the kind of workforce is the language, right? The language is the most toughest part to anybody who's worked in that area. Language is the most toughest part, but then if you're going to only talk technology, it'll be easier.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
No problem.
Thank you for the clarification.
Next, we have Pranav.
Good evening, sir. Sir, as we are talking about addition of technology in the industry, so all the workers would also, all the employees and would also be required to be more adapt to the technology. So while hiring also, is it considered that if he's versatile in different fields or if he can adapt to technology, or is that not that much of considered in the field?
Yeah, so Pranav, my issue is I hire technology guys. They better know what they're talking about. But it's a basis. Let's take your example right now. It's very important that anybody who's working in the university knows how to use Zoom, right? So it's need of the hour, right? Of understanding. So those bases of technology has gone one notch above, right? You should, as simple as saying that you should know how to do FaceTime on your phone, right? The assumptions of basis of this thing has gone a step above, right? Understanding of technology, usage of technology is now a basis of. It's not something which you can't teach somebody, but it's good to have, because if I'm going to go and interview a person and that person is not able to log into Zoom, that's an issue, right?
Yes.
While I can train that person for a period of time, but then you need to at least understand some of the basis of technology, because that's not a benchmark of assessment or this thing, but that's an expectation now as we speak.
Next question is from Vaibhav Agarwal.
Yeah, good evening, sir. Thank you for the session. Sir, my question is like, as we're moving towards the next generation where there is more remote world, as you mentioned, like if pandemic was not there, we did not know whether we'll be using Zoom so much. And now looking at this workforce in the future terms, what do you think is the optimal model so that the people who are working can have a continuous learning such that it personalizes their development path or accommodate different human interactions, because now the human interaction has changed a lot due to this pandemic thing.
So, it's predominantly dependent on the role which you do. And I hope we come out of this pandemic soon. What some of the things which we have realized, and in fact, I've written an article on remote workforce. It got published in one of the magazines. I'll try and maybe send it to somebody in your team. We can read about it. It's pretty beneficial from an organization standpoint to have a hybrid model. It'll not be all work, it'll not be all remote, and it'll not be all virtual. Some of the people will realize they need not come to office every day. Some people will realize they just need to come once a week because they need to connect and understand. Zoom or whichever technology anybody uses enables you to do that function. But now organizations, what they need to do, and I'm sure you would have read about workforce planning. I feel that's a very important subject. So do spend time on that. It's very important that they will realize that some of the roles by design needs some amount of work to be done in office. Some of those roles, maybe an individual UX role maybe needs to come maybe once a week and speak to the team and can be done independently. To some of the other roles which people need to come once. People working in large teams, if they need not come to office actually at all, some of those roles which requires for you to come in a contained environment, you need to come to an office to get some of those things done. But what has the organization realized is they will have to run a hybrid model, okay, of saying that these are some of the roles I think we will need people because of XYZ reasons. These are some of those roles you need not come to office because by now, while we have done that, productivity has gone up, right? And look at recruiting, right? Actually, they need not go to office so much, right? Because you're assessing people, you're connecting with folks, right? But then you need to have connect with your leaders. That means you need to have a weekly connect with your stakeholders, right? So that's what somebody else talked about, connecting and engaging, right? So it'll be an hybrid model. It'll be a model where people will look at things little more differently, but the each organization will have a very different model. We will not go into a mode of 100% coming from to office, right? um, just a joke, and I was speaking to one of my friends. Colleges might just realize of saying that, hey, I'll give differential fees, of saying that if some of them just want to do a virtual course, they can just do a virtual course completely, right? Like now Harvard started giving some of those virtual courses, and some of the other ones have started, Syracuse and few others have started giving those virtual courses. So all of that has come into play, but it's really dependent on the role, the organization. But the pandemic has made sure that you realize a lot of the things can be done from home. You need not come to office.
Thank you, sir. So next we have Karupaya.
Yes. Good evening, sir. I'm sorry for the glitch previously. There was
No
some
problem.
issue with my internet. So I wanted to ask that, sir, like previously, if we see like some time back, or maybe a couple of decades ago, we saw the employees would be very loyal to the organization and they wouldn't be leaving organization that early. Like if they start an organization, they used to continue it until the period of their retirement. But nowadays, we see the mindset of the people to be like very dynamic and maximum. I mean, with respect to the graduates from the recent after 2015, we see them to be in organization associated for maybe 2 to 3 years. So what is your take on this? You feel still the employee retention is very much needed for any organization, and how is Informatica tackling it, sir?
Yeah, so as I spoke about, it's a generation need. When you were born in a very different era, people have very different mindset about working. That's why you have those different generations. It's very important. As I said, every generation has a very different point of view. Now coming to the shelf life of an employee in an organization, it's pretty. Sometimes it is smaller. Sometimes it is even higher. It's an issue of it's an issue of what they want and what they want to achieve. It's good from an organization standpoint that you realize why are people attriting, right? Quality of work, higher education. Okay, so those are important parts of important parts of understanding the triggers, right? Then how do you tackle this in a larger organizations, at least in a product organizations? People are looking at quality of work. That means you need to have the kind of work which the person wants to work. Secondly is secondly is looking at what the person aspires to do, right? If the person aspires to do something a little more different, and in the organization I can train that person to reach that goal, then why not, right? So the individualization, the personalization is very important from an organization standpoint to see how do I retain, how do I retain the people whom I want to retain. Remember, it's a question of that, right? Not retain everybody. Retain the kind of people I want to retain, because they will help grow the organization in a faster direction. That means I need to understand what my employee wants. I spoke about the surveys, right? It's very important to do pulse surveys. It's important to look at performance feedback to see what is important, and do I customize the learning of individual according to their needs, right? If you open today's Coursera or any of those, if they look at your complete profile, they will propose some of those learnings for you, right? So we have moved into those eras of individualization learning and commitment to the organization. All people want in the current set of jobs, and it's a survey which is large, some amount of flexibility of work, flexibility to bring their own asset to the organization, flexibility of picking time to get things delivered. So a lot of these inputs have been trained to the managers who have high attrition of saying that this is what your team is looking at. This is your survey feedback. How do you retain your set of people? These are the people who would want this. Are you tackling that? So it becomes individualized. It becomes far more personalized. You live and breathe your culture. And also, please remember, all cultures of all organizations need to evolve. If your culture hasn't changed the last 20 years, then there is something wrong with the organization. So the evolution of culture plays a very, very important part also from a retention standpoint, because it should be far more progressive. It just can't be something that 30 years back somebody decided that this will be the culture of the organization. So evolving with the employee, making sure they achieve their goals, and you making sure that you are there. There is no one set training for everybody of saying that, but then it has to be a very individualized approach to retaining, and obviously data analysis of seeing why and everything else, which everybody does.
Thanks, sir.
Uh, with the constraint of time, sir, we will take the last two questions now. Next is Raman. Please go ahead.
Hi, good evening, sir. So I agree with the point that humans have an ability of critical thinking, and they also possess an emotional quotient, which machines lack. So, but with this, there are also chances of mistakes. Recently, like we have seen some videos where Tesla's autonomous driving cars, they tend to the car reacts on its own, so that to avoid an unforeseen situation, which the human is unable to see. So, with so many advantages, will we be able to avoid the dominance of AI in the future?
It's not be. So your role will always evolve, right? Remember for a fact that when you get interviewed, you not only ask questions about your success, it's your failures which will give you your success in the future, right? Right. So that's how the direction of a lot of things evolve, right? While I know Tesla, as you took an example, which is able to see through a lot of things, little more, which could happen progressively, right? I think I remember seeing a movie called Minority Report. To anybody who has seen, who could progressively see what could happen in the future. But then there are limitations to some of those. Is your infrastructure ready for that? While Tesla is ready for it, to anybody who lives in Delhi, if I get the Tesla vehicle in Delhi, then you know what's going to happen, right? Tesla will end up learning a little more of Hindi than anything else at that period of time, right? So your infrastructure should be pretty much strong to get you into that situation. we will learn from technology. Remember, all roles will also evolve after a period of time from a technology. They will pick up some of those things because it's a luxury which I would want to be driven, right? I rather not drive. So I won't want to get into a strong infrastructure, but it will survive in some of those areas. It may not survive in some of those areas, but it's a matter of time. Maybe the time is coming in due course of time, due course of in couple of years down the line. But we will have to make those mistakes for us to see what's the best possible course in the future, right? It's something which which could happen, but I'm not very sure about it. On the lighter part, I think Tesla has just come into India, if I'm not wrong.
Thank you, sir. So we'll have the final question from Anish.
Good evening, sir. Thank you for your inspiring words. It's really helpful. So, sir, you talked about how the future is going to be about the employees more and not the work. So, is it more because of the gig economy, or is the machines, the smarter machines, being our co-workers? So, how is the value going to be injected into the economy more if it's not about the work and more about the employees?
So you're saying, sorry, your voice was cracking in between. So you said I stressed more on the employees,
Yes,
right?
yes, that the future is going to be more about the employees and lesser about the work. So I was wondering, how is that conjunction going to take place, as far as the
Okay.
value addition is concerned?
Okay. 1 second. Sorry. Trying to.
Yes, sir.
Somebody pinging it. Okay. Yes, it's the future is going to be more about the employees. Okay. It has to be about employees because that's a workforce which has the intelligence to bring anything up, right? It can't be about work, right? It can't be about workplace, right? Example, you are sitting, you are studying in a college right now, right? But it's not about the infrastructure. You are at home, right now. You are getting things done from here virtually, and in due course of time, some of the colleges just might go virtual. You need not physically go there, right? So it's all about you, right? And it'll be all about mankind. Robots, machines will pick up a lot of work from us, but it's the intelligence which we give them, right? It's about me telling them, okay, this is your environment and this is what you need to do, and they will keep on shuffling between in that period of time to give me efficiency for that notch up, one notch up, two notches up. But for me to radically change the curve, it has to be the human mindset which will help move this in a very different direction, right? So that's my input to it.
Thank you, sir. So we would now conclude the session. Thank you, sir, for this enriching one. Being the aspirants of these future workforce, I think it's beneficial and important for us to understand the changing demands and the need of the hour so that we better season ourselves to deliver results. Thank you for your time again, and I'm sure the batch had some key insights to take away and benefit from this session.
Thank you very much. I think that it was a pleasure. I think it's the first time I have interacted with your batch. So I wish you all the best, and do keep your focus when you get interviewed. My recommendation is just a couple of points. When you get interviewed or when you get please understand your theories pretty well, but make sure that the kind of work what you've done, read about it, and specifically the project which you land up, because that's the area which you will be quizzed. And some of the skills which I spoke about, articulate that pretty well, and also do your homework about the organizations. People don't land up doing that. Understand the culture, imbibe that culture when you get interviewed. Just a short sentence, but I wish you all the best.